All right, so here we go. So we're looking at y equals 8 sine x. Y equals 8 sine x. So what, let me write it a little bigger for you, 8 sine x. So what is that 8 going to do to the graph? What is that 8?
Up to 8 instead.
Yeah, that's the amplitude, isn't it? Now notice there's nothing else going on with the x. There's nothing there, so I'm not going to need to do anything else other than the new top is going to be 8, the new bottom is -8. Instead of 1 at the top and -1 at the bottom, it's 8 and -8.
And it'll still be...
Everything else will still be the same.
It'll still go to 2 pi.
Start at 0, go high, go low, and it'll do all that by 2 pi. It'll do all that between 0 and 2 pi. Yeah, so we're not moving the start, we're not moving the end. Why not? Because there's no messing around with x. All they did was stick an 8 in the front. Good so far? So on the test we take, the second exam, which is Monday after next, it'll be multiple choice. The graphs will be multiple choice, like every test is. So you'll see, which one is. So you'll need to graph it like that and find 0 to 2 pi, just like that. That's one cycle. Of course, it goes on, right? There's more after, more before, but we just need one good cycle, and then we can identify which one's the right answer. On the homework, they have a little program. Let me show you. All right, so how do we do 5 sine of 1/4 x? So this one's going to have a little more complexity to it. So first off, let me write it up here. 5 sine 1/4 x. What's the 5? That's the amplitude. We know that. No big deal. So that's the amplitude. Now, let's figure out the period. What is the period? What's the formula for period?
2 pi over b.
2 pi over b. 2 pi over b. Right? So that's what I wrote for you on the sideboard. Period is 2 pi over b. You want to have this for the second exam. You don't need it for Monday. This homework's not due Monday. 2 pi over b. What's b? This is a... This is b, the number next to x. The number multiplied right next to x, that's b. Does it make sense what I'm saying? So a is the number in the very front of sign. B is the number multiplied next to x. So the b is 1/4. So I've got 2 pi over 1/4. What do I do now? Grab that, right, like we've done a few times, flip it up. So it's 2 pi times 4 over 1. 2 pi times 4, 8 pi. So the period is 8 pi. So what does that mean? That means when I go to the graph now, it'll start at 0 and it'll end at 8 pi, not 2 pi. Do you see that? So, and then what will it do? Sine, what does he do? He starts in the middle, he goes high, comes back to the middle, goes low, comes back to the middle. How high will he go? 5. How low will he go? -5. Done.
And it'll cross at 4 pi.
Yeah, it hits the middle at 4 pi. Does that make sense, what I did there? So it just stretched it, didn't it? Normally, the normal sign would do his whole thing by here. This would be 2 pi, wouldn't it? 4 pi here, 6 pi there. Normally, sign would go like this and do his whole thing by 2 pi. It grabbed that little thing and stretched it all the way to 8 pi, didn't it? That's what this 1/4 x did to it. It stretched out its period. Like that. You don't need the 4 pi and 6 pi stuff. Not required. Does everybody see that? Everybody see how I did that? So the period is 2 pi over b. b is whatever number's multiplied next to x. So the period's 8 pi. It stretches it out like that. So multiple choice test, you would just grab the one that did that. Remember, the graph really goes left forever, right forever, but that's one cycle, isn't it? That's one period. All right, so now how do we do that on our little program? Okay, try that one. So it's y equals -7 sine 2 pi x. like that. So try that. See if you can find out. The two questions they're going to ask you. They're going to say, what's the amplitude? We can tell that. What's the amplitude? Yeah, you always give the positive version of 7. And now, find the period. So find the period of that thing. And then put it on the graph. Once you get the period, see if you can make a graph of one cycle. What's the period coming out to be?
Pi.
Isn't it 1? Period is 2 pi over b, right? That's what the formula is. Period's 2 pi over b. What's b? It's the number, it's whatever's multiplied next to x is 2 pi. So the period is 2 pi over 2 pi. Right? Which is 1. We good? Period is 2 pi over b. b is whatever's next to the x. So this is a, this is b. We haven't had a c yet. After the break, they're going to give us some with the c. Then we're going to really moving things around.
But I thought the graph moves by increments of pi. So
No, it can do all kinds of things. Yeah, they won't keep it that simple. All right. So let's graph it. So start at 0. Where's it going to end its first cycle? 1. That good? And so it'll do what? It'll go,
down.
yeah, oh yeah, -7. It's actually going to go down first, isn't it? Not up first. So it'll go down, then up, and it goes down to -7, up to +7. There it is. It does all that between 0 and 1. The period is 1. We good there? And then you can do that on the thing. Is that all good? Let's do one. We'll do one more. We'll break. We're good with that one. Questions on that one? Yeah.
What did you say about the absolute value?
Bonnie.
Again? Yes.
What's that about?
What did you say about the absolute value again?
Oh, A, they always just give the positive.
So that's for cosine and only, or what is that?
Oh, no, just that. It's not anything fancy. Just like distance. So if I said I went south, I never say negative distance, do I? That's what they're doing. They just want to know the number.
We don't have to like show our work ever with like the absolute.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, just say only the positive.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll see why the ending point is the phase shift plus the period. Because the period is the width of the cycle, isn't it? So wherever you start, add the width. And you get to the end. So that's the whole idea. So the phase shift just takes the original graph, shifts it back, or maybe forward, we'll get to those later, but for now, shifts it back. You take your starting point and you add the total width, and that gets you to the end. That's how we find the end. That's where those formulas are coming from. So whenever you're dealing with sine or cosine, did I put the pencil somewhere funny? Yeah. So the start will always be the phase shift, and the end will always be the phase shift plus the period. Because again, what is the period? The width of one cycle. Making sense? The width of one cycle.
So the halfway point in between those two pi, the negative pi over 4 and the pi over 7.
Right.
Is that what it was?
No, but some part 4. But anyways.
The halfway point in between there is where it'll.
Right. But we don't need to worry about all those details for now, but that is true. So is everybody good? So I've got the starting point, negative pi over 4, which is just the phase shift. And then how did I find the end point? I took where it started and I added the width. I added 2 pi, the period. Common denominator, 7 pi over 4. So what's it going to do? It's going to go high and low. I didn't do that very evenly, but something like that. Jose?
It doesn't start down since it's the negative, the shift is negative?
Oh, no, it's the amplitude. That if the amplitude at the very front is negative, it goes down first. So this one will go high. This one will go up to 1, down to -1. There it is. Is that making sense? All right. So let's try another. Amplitude is 2. They're going to say, what's the period? So remember how we find period? The formula is 2 pi over b. 2 pi over b. And what's b?
4.
Yeah, right, because this is a, b, and c is 2 pi. Is everybody good there? See the a, b, and c? So you identify the a, b, and c in the original formula. A is the number in the front, b is the number next to x multiplied by x, and c is the number added or subtracted after x. So the period is 2 pi over b, 2 pi over 4. We reduce all fractions, don't we? So 2 goes into 4 2 times. Period's pi over 2. We good? Now find the phase shift.
Are we including pi in the answer to phase shift?
If it's part of it.
So like up there where it says 2 pi, like.
Oh yeah, the whole thing. Yeah, the whole 2 pi. Yep. As part of the deal. Yep. So the phase shift is negative c over b, right? Negative c over b. So that's negative c. What's c? The whole 2 pi. Like Ani was mentioning. It's the whole 2 pi. And b is 4.
So it's negative pi over 2.
So these reduce. Yeah, negative pi over 2. Is that making sense? See how I'm coming up with those different pieces? So the a is 2. The amplitude is 2. Period, 2 pi over b, came out pi over 2. And the phase shift, negative pi over 2. Now, can you put it on a graph? Having done all that, can we put down the start and the end?
So it's going to cross at 0.
Yeah. So let's put down the start. Find where does that graph start?
In the negative.
It always starts at its phase shift, huh? The phase shift is the start. So negative pi over 2. That's where the graph's going to start. And where's it going to end?
Just on the other side of it's 0.
Yeah, so how do we officially find the ending point?
Negative pi over 2 plus.
Yeah, phase shift plus the period. Right? Because the period is the width of a cycle. Right? The period is the width of the cycle. So, therefore, so the ending here, the end here, the start here, the end will always be the phase shift, which is negative pi over 2, plus the period. It's the phase plus the period, which is, 0. It's supposed to be 0, huh? It's going to end here at 0. I didn't realize that.
It's going to end at 0.
Yep, I was getting confused. Is that good? Does everybody see that, how we found the ending? The ending is always the phase, where it starts, plus the period.
So it didn't really shift at all. Because it did, but
It shifted its full cycle.
but when you do multiple cycles,
That's right.
0 to
It'll look like, that's right. So, we good there? It starts here, ends here at the origin.
So is it just like compressed?
Yeah, it compressed it quite a bit, didn't it? It really did. So it's going to do its whole thing. It's going to go up
not to a shift.
and down, all between negative pi over 2 and 0. And then it'll keep on doing that forever to the right and the left.
So I'm saying it'll appear as if it didn't shift at all.
Exactly. Because when your phase shift equals your period, you've moved a full cycle, which means you've done nothing. Yeah, right.
But you're back at 0.
Right. Is that making sense? Seeing how that worked, right? I found the end here by phase plus period. So there it is. Let's go see how to enter this on the graph generator, but is that okay? Questions I can answer on that. Okay, so all right, so the amplitude is 3. The number in the front is the amplitude. And the period, 2 pi over b. 2 pi over b is the period. What's the b?
B is 4.
Yeah, so a is -3. B is 4. C is -2 pi, right? A, B, and C, we good there? So 2 pi over B, 2 pi over 4, which is pi over 2. We good? We got the period pi over 2? 2 pi over B. And then we've got the phase shift. What's the phase shift? Minus C over B. Good. Oh yeah, you got to watch out, huh? There's a minus. Oh, by the way, I do it a little different than Math Excel here. I'll show you in a minute. I'll show you in a minute. So anyway, so I put a minus here in the formula, right? So whenever there's a negative in a formula, that's in addition to anything you plug in for C or B, isn't it? So there's the minus right in the formula, and then I'm gonna get a little scribbly there. Then I'm gonna plug in C, which is itself minus 2 pi. So I got a minus in the formula, and then C is minus 2 pi over B, which is 4. So double negative, positive, huh? So watch out. You got the negative from the formula, and then you got the negative from the C, double negative, positive. It's going to be positive pi over 2. So the phase shift is positive on this. So we're moving this graph to the right, aren't we? So here's one going to the right. All right, we ready to graph it? So now when it comes to the graph, where does this thing start? Its first cycle? At the phase shift. That's where you horizontally shift to. So the starting point is pi over 2. Okay. And then the period, how do you find the ending point? Yeah. So it starts at pi over 2. It starts at the phase shift. And the ending point is always the phase shift plus the period. So that's going to be pi over 2 plus pi over 2. Now what's pi over 2 plus pi over 2? Yeah, this is, let's be careful with this here. This is going to be 1 pi over 2 and 1 pi over 2, which is 2 pi over 2. And the 2's cancel. It is pi. So the ending point is pi. Is that making sense? Half a pi and half a pi make a whole pi, in other words.
That's right.
Don't they?
I like this.
Good? So now, how's the graph going to go? It's a sine graph. Where's it going first, up or down? Yeah, remember the -3? That's what Jose was talking about earlier. So when there's a negative in the front, it's about the very front, that means the graph is going to go down first instead of up. So this graph's going to go down and back to the middle, up and back to the middle. And it's doing all that between pi over 2 and pi. How are we doing? Where would they ever use this? Real life? This is exactly what engineers and scientists would do. They would see something in the real world that's going up and down, up and down, up and down, but they would measure how long it takes. They would watch it cycle, whether it's the power coming out of the wall or the whatever, some kind of thing moving up and down, and they would, or forward or backward, or any kind of oscillatory motion, anything that's oscillating back and forth, the right clocks, everything. So they would watch it, and they would watch how long it takes for it to go forward and back and complete its cycle, forward and back. And that how long it takes is the period. And then the amplitude is how far out it goes when it comes back. And the phase shift is how long off of time 0 they're starting the process. And they would do all that, and they'd make sines and cosine equations and graphs to represent what they see in the real world so they can predict things and do things with them. That's exactly what they do, is they need to use these pieces of the puzzle. So are we good on that? Anything I can answer on that? Is that coming out okay? You ready to shift to cosine? So we're good. Question, Bernadette.
Can we just sort of use the formula for sine or cosine to find the same things?
Yeah, right. We're going to use all the same stuff. Yeah. So let's try that one. Use all the same stuff. So find the period. This is what you need to find the period, right? What's the A on this one?
7.
That's the 7. What's the B? It's the 2 pi, right? We all good with that? That's the B.
1.
And what's the C?
Nothing.
Yeah, what number is added or subtracted after X? You could put a 0 if you want. Nothing. C is 0. Good? So take it from there. So you always identify in the main equation A, B, and C, and then you dive into your 3 formulas, amplitude, period, and phase shift. So the amplitude is 7. The period is 2 pi over b, isn't it? So 2 pi over, and what's b? It's also 2 pi. So that's 1. The period's just 1, isn't it? You good there? And then finally, what's the phase shift? It's negative c over b, negative 0 over 2 pi. 0 in the top of a fraction, it's just 0. Doesn't matter that it's negative. Negative 0 is still just 0, isn't it? How much money do you have? Negative 0. 0. It's still just 0. Okay. So now, can we graph it? Let's go to the graph. Now, to the graph we go. So where are we going to start? Where does this one start?
Positive 7 to go up the y-axis 7.
No, yeah. So when I say start, I don't mean high-low. Well, I mean, I guess I do sometimes. So first off, I mean like sideways. So where is it starting sideways? 0, right? This one starts at the phase shift. The phase shift is always the start. We'll start at 0. But yeah, it'll start high or low, won't it? We'll get to that in a minute. Let's just get that. Notice what I always do. I always get the sideways stuff down first, and then I zone in the vertical stuff. So again, you don't have to do that order. But so I'm doing the sideways stuff first. I'm getting, okay, it starts at 0. I do the left edge, the right edge. Then I do the bottom and the top. So left edge, right edge. Left edge is 0. Right edge, where does it end? The period, yeah. It's going to end at 1. Does everybody see that? Because that's the period, huh? So it's going to start at 0 in, so I get the left edge, right edge. And now, where's the bottom and the top going to be? Well, the amplitude is 7. So it's going to go up to positive 7, down to negative 7, isn't it? So you know what we've got here? Is you got a box. And you don't have to put the box, the dotted box, but it might help. It's whatever you want to do. Not required at all. But I'm just going to put it all in a big box. I know that one cycle is going to happen. The first cycle is going to fit exactly in that box. Because I found left edge, right edge, bottom, top. You tracking with me? So it starts at 0, it ends at 1. Right. We don't have to put the middle on, but you are right. So it starts at 0, it ends at 1, because that's the period. That, in fact, is the phase plus the period, if you want to be real formal about it. 0 plus 1 is 1. So the phase plus the period, that's 1. The bottom and top, -7, +7. So we're going to put the graph in that box. We're going to put the cosine. Now, what graph are we putting in there? Cosine. So we're going to put a U shape in that box, aren't we? We're going to stick a U shape in that box. Now, is it a U going up or a U going down? Well,
It's a whole.
it's a +7, so it's a going up. So, well, I mean a normal U. When I say going up, I mean I know it drops, but it's a normal U. So, whereas the last one, that was an upside down U, wasn't it? Because that was a negative in the front. That's what I mean. All right, so it's going to start high, end high, hit the low in the middle. Here comes the U shape. There we go. And of course, that graph will go on forever to the right, forever to the left, but there's its first cycle in that box. Exactly. We good? You ready? No, none of these two cosine graphs have not had a phase shift yet. So that's where we're going next. You ready? We want to throw all the components now into cosine. All right. Y equals 5. Cosine 2x minus pi over 2. All right, so that's a big one. See what you can do there. That has everything going on. It's got a period, a phase shift, an amplitude. It's cosine, not sine. See if you can put it together. So you identifying everything. So the A is 5, the B is 2, and the C is minus pi over 2, right? The A, B, and C. A is the number in front, B is next to x, C is added or subtracted after x. So there's your A, B, and C. Now dive into the 3 formulas for amplitude, period, and phase shift. Open and finish. So let's go through the details. All right, what's the amplitude? That's going to be 5. Number in the front, always positive. The period is 2 pi over b, which is 2 pi over, what's b? 2. The period is pi. We good there? And then the phase shift. The phase shift is negative c over b. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to mention to you. That the if you click on the Math Excel Show Me an Example button, you use that to help you. They call the phase shift positive c over b. But they are wrong. No, it's that they're doing it a different way, is what it is. They called the original positive, negative instead of positive, and whatever. Don't let that throw you off. This is right. They're right too from a different perspective. So this is true. So negative c over b. Keep going with this. So negative. What is c? It's negative pi over 2, isn't it? Gotta be careful there. Over, and what's b? 2. We get that double negative. It's not going to be positive. We good there? See how we have a negative from the formula, negative c over b, and then a negative on the plug-in. We good? So anyway, so what do we do with this? These two negatives make positive. So we get positive. And then what do you do with pi over 2 over 2? Put this 2 over 1 and flip it up, huh? So it's going to be pi over 2 times 1 over 2, or pi over 4. Did you all get that okay? So that's my phase shift, pi over 4, positive pi over 4. Got my period, got my amplitude. All right, we got everything. We're ready to graph. So let's go to the graph. So when I graph this now, I am going to start, where am I going to start my graph? My first cycle.
At pi over 4.
Right. Start, you always start at the phase shift. That's the shift. That's where the beginning shifts to. So I'm going to start, so I always get my left edge, right edge first. I always get my left edge, right edge, and then I get my bottom top. So left edge, right edge, left edge, right edge. So we're starting at pi over 4. We're going to end. How do I find where we're going to end? Got to get my right edge here. Left edge, right edge is always what I do first. How am I going to get the right edge?
Pi over 1.
Yeah, you got to take your starting point. Got to take where your start is that you've been shifted to, and you've got to add the period. Pi. Don't you? Which is the total width. You got to take where you started and then add the width of that ruler. Now, how do I add that? How do I add pi over 4 and pi?
Common denominator.
Put it over 1, top and bottom by 4. You know the drill. It's going to end up being 5 pi over 4, isn't it? Good. Starts at pi over 4, ends at 5 pi over 4. Are we good? All right. And now how high and low? 5. So it goes up to 5, down to negative 5. So I'm going to do the dotted box. You don't have to. So I made a box. I made a box which goes, oh wait, why did I go to 0? That was a bad box. I'm supposed to stop here, huh? Because that's where it starts. This is the start. That was not a good box. I got confused between the start and the the y-axis, huh? Everybody with me on the box? The box starts at pi over 4. That's my left edge. Ends at 5 pi over 4. The bottom is negative 5. The top is positive 5. So I like to make a box where I'm going to fit in my sine or my cosine. So there it is. So I'm going to fit a cosine in there. Now, how does a cosine look?
It's gonna be a regular U.
Cosine is a U shape, either a regular U, if it's positive cosine, or an upside down U if it's a negative cosine. This is a positive 5 cosine. So it's going to start at the upper left of the box. In the middle, it'll be bottoming out. At the end, it'll be back to the top again. Right? So here we go. With my great artistic skills, we've got a cosine graph. Is that good? Will you be able to recognize that in a multiple choice test, exam number 2, a week from Monday? And it'll have cycles forever to left and right. So I want to show you about the practice exam. We good with that though? Is that making sense? So we did like 2/3 of that section or whatever. 6/10, 60%. So I think we did more than that in reality. Okay, so let's stop that there.